Hi everybody, today we're going to treat a rusty gas tank with our magic rust spray. So what we have in this container, this is 60% concentrate phosphoric acid, which means that it's 60% phosphoric acid and about 40% water. Now, you don't need to have 60% concentrate, you could have 100% concentrate. You would probably want to dilute that down a little bit with water, but you could use it. You could use 20% concentrate. That would be about the weakest strength that I would want to use for this purpose. Otherwise, if you go any weaker than that, then it's going to be very ineffective. Okay, so we have 60% concentrate phosphoric acid. The mix is not 60% as the base. It's going to be a 20-to-1 mix ratio, basically. So 60% just means that it's concentrated 60%. Okay, so we've got that. Now we're going to take hand sanitizer, which is ethyl alcohol, and we're going to dump it in here. We're just going to dump a bunch in until we're satisfied. That looks to me like enough for that mix, and that's all we're going to do. Then we're going to take a spray bottle top and put it on the bottle. Now, this phosphoric acid comes from a farm supply store. It's called Milkstone Remover. You can get it in many different forms, in many different places. They sell it at stores that sell swimming pool supplies. They sell it at home renovation stores like Home Depot, just with different names, different purposes, but it's all phosphoric acid. So you can get concrete etch, you can get I don't know what they call the pool stuff, but it's a pool cleaner basically. They use this stuff for many different purposes. Now, this is food grade phosphoric acid. This is used for cleaning the big milk vats and for cleaning anything involved with food. So factories use it for cleaning their equipment when they're mass producing food in the factory. I'm sure they use it in places that make beer, that have the big beer vats and stuff like that. So it's not really detrimental for your health. It's not really bad for you. It's not unsafe for the environment. They use phosphoric acid to level out the pH balance of water and plants and all of that stuff. So it's relatively safe for the environment. It's relatively safe for you to use. Now, I do recommend using gloves and using eyewear, especially in an enclosed area, because if you get this in your eyes, it will sting a little bit. It won't make you blind, but it will sting a little bit. If you get it in a cut on your hand, it will sting a little bit, but you're going to survive it. It's not going to melt your limbs off. It's not going to melt your clothes off or anything like that. You'll be fine. So here is our rusty gas tank. And all we're going to do is take our spray bottle that we made up, and we're going to spray it. This gas tank is an original gas tank from 1972. It's for a 1972 Charger. It's nothing special, but it's still in good shape. It doesn't have any holes in it, so it's still usable. So that's why we're going to use it. My spray bottle is acting up. We'll make the best of it. Now, this gas tank has a lot of surface rust on it, so I'm going to spray it very liberally so that I get the best results out of it. I'm not one to want to do a lot of physical labor to do stuff like this. If I had to do a lot of physical labor, I would just buy a new tank. But a new tank costs $300+ for this car, and if you can save something without having to pay for it, that's great, because it's expensive enough to restore a car, especially Mopars, and if it's unnecessary to buy another tank, then why would you? Just make do with what you got. I'm not one of these rich people that just go out and throw money at things and buy all brand new stuff because I don't have that kind of budget. My sprayer is much to be desired, though. I need a new one of those soon. And now it's starting to spray properly. Alright, so we have a nice coating on here. And now all we have to do is sit here and watch. And after 24 hours, all of this rust will be converted. It will be dead. And this tank will be ready for epoxy primer. Once you put epoxy primer on it, then it's paintable. And once you paint it, it's going to look pretty much brand new. You can see it bubbling up the rust and causing a chemical reaction, turning the rusty metal into iron phosphate. Now, the reason we would treat a gas tank like this rather than taking wire wheels to it and stuff like that is because the gas tank is thin enough as it is, and you're going to take the risk that you will make it leak, so you'll put holes in it. So I wouldn't mess with it with any kind of power tools or anything like that. I would just do this, and after this process, make sure that it doesn't leak. Of course, you can just fill it with water, put a little bit of pressure on it if you want, make sure it doesn't leak. If it passes that test, then it should be fine to put your fuel in. Now, like somebody suggested on one of my other videos, they suggested for a gas tank you could put a little bit of pea gravel on the inside and slosh it around. It was a really good idea, actually. It takes all the rust scale and everything out of the tank, and then you can then treat the inside with this mix as well to take any of the rust out of the inside of the tank, to clean that up. So basically, in the end, you're going to end up with a tank that's just as good as a new tank. Tank after about 30 minutes, and as you see, the rust is mostly dead on it already. It's dissolved at this point. It's pretty much neutralized at this point, and the iron oxide is no longer. It has a little bit of the rust color, and after a little bit of time, this is going to turn black, and by the time we're ready to paint this tomorrow, it will be completely neutralized and ready to paint. Even if it has a little bit of the rust color, as long as you've gotten the spray on that area, then it will be perfectly fine, and it will not continue from there, especially if you're putting epoxy on it. Some people have recommended using some kind of agent to thicken it. Like, I don't remember what they were using, but they were using something to make it into like a cream or something like that. It's really not necessary. You don't need the product to stay on the area that you're treating. It's already working from the time that it touches the metal, and it's already doing its thing. And if I wiped all this off right now and leave it overnight, it will still do its job, and it will still kill all the rust that's on this gas tank. I get asked a lot of questions. One of them in particular is, why am I adding ethyl alcohol to the mix? Well, you could run straight phosphoric acid, but I find with the ethyl alcohol, it makes it so that it doesn't leave any hard water stains on it, doesn't leave any marks on it. It cleans the metal. It also works as a solvent to evaporate everything off of the tank, because you don't necessarily want that mixture to be on the tank for a long period of time. Once it hits the surface, it starts working on the metal immediately. So I add the ethyl alcohol to make it evaporate and give it a cleaner surface, and so that it's ready to paint, and I don't have to do anything with it after that. I'm a strong believer in do as little as work as possible to get good results, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. There's media blasting. There's soda blasting. There is people that have vats of molasses that they soak their stuff in. Molasses works really good. To me, it's just really really messy. Um, you have electrolysis. You have um, I don't know. There's many possibilities. There's acid dipping, which is kind of what we're doing here, but they're using a much more toxic acid, um, and it's not very environmentally friendly. And I wouldn't acid dip a car only because there's many side effects that can come of it. If you do a car like the one behind me here, which is a unibody, when you acid dip that, the acid is going to go into the frame rails, is going to go into every seam, every nook and cranny. The problem is now you've taken all of the paint out of everywhere, all of the protection that it did have, and it's really difficult to recoat it in those areas and to protect it again for the future. So you have a better chance that it's going to rust out quicker after you've done that. Um, so I don't recommend doing acid dipping. The other reason is the acid will go into your pinch welds, it will go into your door seams, all of that stuff. And if it's not properly neutralized, which you can't possibly get into every nook and cranny to neutralize it, it could very well be after you get your car painted and you get a rainfall, the rain itself could reactivate the acid. Next thing you know, you've got bubbles coming up through your paint, and it's just going to create a nightmare. So as far as doing a whole car goes, if you're trying to get a car stripped down, get all the body fill and the paint and everything that people have done over the years to it down to bare metal so that you can start as a fresh project, the best way that I would recommend is media blasting, dry media blasting, not wet media blasting, not soda blasting because it will not take all the body fill and everything off the car. Soda blasting is good for Corvettes, it's good for fiberglass, it's not good for metal. Um, when we were in the media blasting business, we used crushed glass with very good results. You can use walnut as well, but it's just an expensive way to do the exact same thing as the crushed glass. It really had no different effect than the crushed glass. So media blasting with crushed glass dry, the reason I recommend dry is because why do you want to add water to your car? You've spent all this time drying out your car so that you can do your restoration on it. Why do you want to get it all wet so that now when you go to do your body work, you've got moisture in all your seams and everything and all your metal? I mean, myself, I like to dry a car out for months before I even try to do body work or anything on it. Um, I like to see it being indoors for a year before I do it, and then that way I know there's no moisture left in the car. It's all dried out. So media blasting is messy. You're going to do a lot of vacuuming afterwards. While you're working on the car, you're going to see media falling out of it for a little while. Maybe even your first drive down the road, there's going to be media coming out of it, out of the frame rails and stuff like that. And that's the only disadvantage to doing media blasting is it's hard to get it cleaned up afterwards. This car was media blasted. It took a very long time to get the media to be cleaned up in it and to stop falling out of it. It's at that point now where if we shook the car, nothing would come out of it. It's very clean. But I spent a lot of time with a blowgun blowing in all the holes in the frame rails and vacuuming and everything else. And it was on a rotisserie, so turning it around on the rotisserie, a lot of the media fell out there too. But it took a long time for it to get cleaned out. But if you're doing wet media blasting, I mean, the only advantage to that is you could do it in your driveway and your neighbors wouldn't be upset because you have a big cloud of dust going into their yard. That would be the only reason I would even see to do something like that. But if you take it to a professional shop, there's no need for them to do wet media blasting. That's just creating mud in your car and creating a lot of problems down the road for you for trying to clean it up because now that stuff is caked everywhere. I think I've touched all the bases there. I hope I have. I hope I've answered all the questions. And if there's any more questions, then I hope that people come forth and comment and ask their questions. I mean, this is the only way that we learn is from asking questions. So, that being said, we're going to go back to the gas tank as soon as it's done, and we'll show you the final results, and you can make a judgment from there. A lot of people are recommending that there's other products out there that do the same job, other rust chemicals that can do the job that this does, and they're absolutely right. There's many products out there. Some of them are stronger than others. There's a lot of products out there that are very weak, so you have to use a large quantity of it to accomplish the same thing that we're accomplishing here. You're going to spend a lot of money on those products, and all I'm trying to do is give you a cheap alternative to doing this stuff without spending a lot of money. The major competitor to this product, which is almost the same thing, I'm not going to name it, but my cost on that stuff here is $85 a gallon, and I have to ship it as well. So then it costs me another $35 to ship it. So by the time I'm done, I'm into $120 for 1 gallon of stuff, and it's 18% concentrate. To me, that doesn't seem worth it. When I can go out and buy 10 gallons of the phosphoric acid for $105, and I can buy hand sanitizer as cheap as dirt nowadays. I mean, 2 years ago, they wanted a lot of money for hand sanitizer because there was a supply and demand issue. But now it's cheap. They're just trying to blow it out the door so you can buy it for next to nothing. So now for $110, we'll say, I can make 10 gallons of this stuff. And to me, that seems a lot more cost effective, and it's 60% concentrate as opposed to 18. So there's a lot of savings there. If you take that 10 gallons and you dilute it with water down to, say, 30 gallons, you're still at 20% concentrate. You're still higher than the competitors as far as their percentage goes, their concentrate goes. And now you've got 30 gallons for the price of 1 gallon. So I don't see any reason to buy the name brand product for that cost difference. And this product is stronger and better as far as I'm concerned. I've used the other product. I have the other product. I have some of it left over. I don't find it works as good as what this does. So that's why I'm using my own formula. Will it hurt plastic, rubber, stainless, aluminum, and so forth? Well, I've never had any effects of it hurting wiring or plastic or any rubbers. As a matter of fact, it makes the rubber look pretty shiny. I don't think it dries it out. I haven't seen any effects like that. Aluminum, I don't know if I would put it on aluminum. I mean, aluminum doesn't rust anyway. If you get it on accidentally, I would just wipe it off with a little bit of soapy water, and that would solve that. As far as stainless goes, I mean, this stuff was designed for stainless in the first place, for cleaning vats and stuff. So I would think stainless is a-okay. People that pour Coca-Cola on rust, the active ingredient in Coca-Cola that takes the rust away, it does work. The active ingredient is phosphoric acid. It's the same thing as what we're using here. We're just eliminating the sugar and everything else that's in the Coca-Cola that is doing nothing for the rust. It's only the phosphoric acid that's doing the job. People also use vinegar. Vinegar does work for mild surface rust. If you had flash rusting on something something that's been media blasted a week ago and it's got a little bit of flash rust on it, then yes, you could use a little bit of vinegar on it, and that acid would clean the rust off of it. When the thing is with media blasting, if you media blasted something and then it gets a little bit of flash rusting on it, it's not necessary to even deal with the flash rusting on the car or on whatever it is that you blasted. If you coat that with epoxy primer, a good epoxy primer that is, that's not going to bleed through, something that seals it in, that rust will die, because rust is iron oxide. Iron oxide requires oxygen to develop. And when you put epoxy primer over top of that, it kills the oxygen. It takes the oxygen away, so that rust can't do anything. It kills that rust. And literally, if you put epoxy primer on something and you sanded it off 2 months later, you wouldn't see any rust there. It would be gone. It would come off with, the little bit of rust color, the rust staining would come off with the primer, and you'd be bare metal anyway. So it's really not necessary to do anything with a little bit of flash rusting. If you're planning to epoxy, then you can just epoxy over that and it'll be perfectly fine. If you've done metal work on your car, you can also use this to etch the metal. So like a metal prep, you put it on clean metal, you can clean off the metal with it, and it will etch the metal and prepare it for your epoxy primer to go on. This product can replace so many products in your household. Um, for instance, if you have corroded battery cables, you can use it on that. Where you've got a bunch of white stuff on your battery on your car, you can use it on that. Or even on like AA batteries, if you've left them in the back of a remote control for a very long time or something like that, and you've got that white corrosion, you can clean that with this stuff. You can clean circuit boards with it. You can clean your tap. I have another video actually where I show that I unclog a tap just by soaking it with this acid in order to clear up all the calcium buildup that was on it. There's so many uses for it that you will try to find things to use it for when you make this. So the only thing I can recommend is trying it for yourself and seeing if you get the same results as I get. I'm not here to play a magic show. It's not smokes and mirrors. This is everyday life for me. This is how I deal with rust, and this is what works the best for me. I've tried many, many products, and this is what I like the best, besides media blasting, of course. But some things you just can't media blast, or you can't afford to media blast, or whatever the case is, or you need it done right now. And this is a good way to do those things. 6 hours later, and the rust is pretty much all gone. If you have any ideas, have anything that you think works better than this, feel free to make your own video and show us, show everybody, because we all want to see. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, comment, and like.